Alexander II was a member of the Romanov family. They had been ruling Russia for around 300 years, and they believed in the divine right of kings. This means that they believe that God himself had chosen the Romanov family to rule over Russia. The Romanov family ruled Russia and were firm believers in autocracy. This means having complete control over the country. So, for example, if the Tsar wanted to make a law stating that everyone should dance on a Wednesday, then he could do that. However, he did have advisors, but he could choose not to listen to them. Alexander II came to the throne at the end of the Crimean War. Russia was attempting to expand west and find an ice-free port. This would increase trade and Russia's military prowess and give access to the Mediterranean. Russia had lost the war due to domestic troubles at home, as well as military incompetence. Alexander realised that Russia was backward compared to other countries at the time, and the longer this went on unchecked, the more difficult it would be to catch up. Therefore, Alexander decided to negotiate an end to the Crimean War and to concentrate on domestic issues. During his reign, he made many reforms to modernise Russia. Some historians call him the reformist Tsar, because he made so many changes that were much needed. The most prominent of Alexander's reforms was the emancipation of the serfs in 1861, or the freedom of the peasants. In Russia, 82% of the population were serfs and were tied to the land and lived in poverty. Alexander hoped that by freeing the peasants from the land, he would modernise Russia. He also abolished censorship, giving freedom of the press. It was claimed that he wanted to know different ideas for modernising Russia, and through the end of censorship, the people could tell him. Books were being published on an unprecedented scale, and news, books, leaflets entered Russia for the first time from other countries. Russia itself produced periodicals and magazines. Another reform was legal reform. Alexander introduced Justices of the Peace, or JPs, and trial by jury to make the legal system fairer for the Russian people. He made education reform, allowing universities to be autonomous and allowing more Russians to be educated. He also introduced military reform to improve the army and made it slightly more attractive prospect. He introduced the Zemstva, which are like town councils, so that Russians could locally make changes like road building and schooling. Alexander also introduced the policy of Russification, which his son is better known for carrying out. Russification was an attempt to unify Russia under one language. This would make it easier to rule over such a large country. Despite these reforms, the Russian people, speaking and reading for the first time, being newly educated, began to feel that they had been oppressed for so long, and were a little resentful towards the Tsar. In particular, a group called the People's Will felt that it would be better for Russia to get rid of the Tsar and his family, so that Russia could be ruled by the people. They were a radical group and decided to assassinate Alexander. Ironically, Alexander was en route to grant a Duma or parliament to give the people more of a say in how Russia was ruled when they threw a bomb at his carriage. Alexander was carried to the palace and died surrounded by his family. A beautiful church called the Church of Our Saviour on Spilled Blood was built on the very spot Alexander met his end. Alexander's son, Alexander III, would be the new Tsar of Russia.